It's been over a month since fighting sparked back up in Israel and Palestine, with the death toll in Gaza now exceeding 10,000 people, nearly half of whom are children. And while the killing is happening almost 7,000 miles away, it impacts every part of our world, including here in Portland. Today, I'm joined by two gentlemen who have intimate connections to the region, family members who are affected by this, Joel Bainan and Nail Sacker. Joel, can you start by telling me a little bit about your connection to Israel and Palestine?
So my family moved to Israel in 1973. My parents, my brother and sister. My parents have now passed on, but my brother and sister and their children, except for one, are all there now. My brother has two daughters. The older one, Liat, and her husband, Aviv, have been taken hostage and are presumed to be in Gaza. The younger daughter of my brother, Tal, lives here in Portland.
Okay, thank you. And Nael, what about you? What is your connection to Palestine and Gaza?
I am American Palestinian. I born and raised in Gaza City. I witnessed the occupation, the humiliation, the detention, all the aspects of the bad side of the occupation. I have family members that they are still in Gaza City. I have two sisters with their children, their grandchildren. And recently, I lost 39 people of my immediate family. My cousin, Layla, along with her husband, children, grandchildren. They moved from the area where is the hospital, the Baptist hospital that got killed, 500 people got killed, moved to their sister's house in the south part of Gaza, supposed to be safe. An airstrike rocket hit them and all of them got killed. The only survivor is 8 years old son that he got injured in the head and eye. This is my relation to them. It's very devastated. The situation is unbearable. The little survivor has no mother, no father, no sisters. I'm wondering how he can live without that.
Where is he now? Who's taking care of him?
He was in the hospital, Shifa Hospital. Then they got him out because there is no number of beds to be in. He's living with one second cousin of his father. So he's still in Gaza City.
Okay. And now Shifa Hospital, where he was, that was recently bombed?
That's right.
Okay. How early into the airstrikes did it impact your family? Did they?
It was 12 days ago. It was when the Israelis asked the people from Gaza City, from the north part, to move to the south part of the. That is where, right after the massacre on the hospital, the Baptist hospital.
Okay, and many of the people who were tragically killed are your siblings and their families, is that right?
That's
okay,
right.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
39 people.
And how many of them were your siblings?
My two cousins, immediate cousins, along with their children, grandchildren, and husband.
Okay, understood. And when did you leave Gaza personally?
I left Gaza 1979 after I graduated from the high school. I got my civil engineering study outside Gaza. I went back one time after 34 years of being out in 2013. That was my last time to see my family.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now, Joel, you're a longtime professor. You teach this historical context, this ongoing conflict, and you lived in Israel for quite some time. What did you do there, and why did you leave, and when?
I went to live in 1970. I stayed until 1973. I was intending to stay forever and ever, but my wife and I concluded after witnessing the occupation and also the struggle of Middle Eastern Jews who are called Mizrahim against discrimination, which was a very prominent internal Israeli issue in the early 1970s. We decided Israel is not such a good place to live, and we left. And my family decided to move there about 6 months after we came back to the United States. I mean, they had decided long before, planned for long before that. Yeah, this kind of split in the family has been very painful from always, sometimes more, sometimes less. I decided after living there that the way for a peaceful coexistence to emerge is that Jews should learn about and feel comfortable in an Arab environment. So I had actually already begun to study Arabic in undergraduate school. I had graduated from Princeton before I went there, and I continued to study Arabic at the Hebrew University, and then also after I came back, and in Cairo for an intensive Arabic course. So for most of my adult life, I've taken the view that if Palestinians are given their full rights, if they are treated with dignity, if they enjoy equality, if they have the right to self-determination, then there is no real reason why Jews and Palestinians can't live together in Palestine, Israel, Palestine, however people want to call it. That's obviously a minority view.
When you say that you think that Palestinians should have equal rights, and if that were to be the case, everybody could live amongst each other peacefully, what does that look like now? What do their rights being taken away, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
So there are different levels of denial of Palestinian rights. But I should say, I'm not Palestinian. I'm not the one who should say what Palestinian rights are. Palestinians should say. But from my point of view, first, there was the expulsion and flight out of fear of 750,000 Palestinians from the country in 1948, what Palestinians call the Nakba, the catastrophe. They are living mostly in the diaspora now, and it's not incidental that 75–80% of all of the people who live in the Gaza Strip now are either refugees or the children or grandchildren of refugees from 1948. Then there are the Palestinian citizens of Israel, about 1.1 million of them, who comprise 21% of all the citizens of Israel. They enjoy some rights. They can vote, but they certainly don't enjoy equal rights. Much of their land has been confiscated by the state and given over for Jewish benefit. Many of them also were expelled from their houses and took refuge somewhere else inside the state of Israel. Many of those Palestinian Arab citizens of Israel have been arrested, fired from their jobs, harassed since October 7th for expressing even the most modest forms of solidarity with the people of the Gaza Strip who are being attacked by Israel. And then since 1967, there is the military occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip, and the de jure annexation of East Jerusalem by Israel. So Palestinians in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip have no rights whatsoever. They don't elect the government that makes policies that govern their lives. Their movement is restricted, very severely so in the Gaza Strip, which has been under siege by Israel and Egypt jointly since 2007. Their lands in the West Bank have been confiscated. There are now 750,000 Israeli settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, over 220 settlements. spread throughout the area, whose purpose from the beginning, from the establishment of the first settlement in 1967, was to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and to prevent the return of those territories to any Arab party.
I know that this situation, why we're sitting here today, is stemmed from October 7th, but there's a whole context that you kind of just went over that this encompasses. This didn't start on October 7th, but on October 7th, as we know, there was an attack that was incited by Hamas, and hostages were taken. To my understanding, your niece and her husband are a part of that group. Can you tell me about that, what your reaction was when you heard the news?
Well, I was devastated. I'm actually, despite the physical distance, quite close to that particular niece. She's a high school history teacher, so we have a lot in common as history teachers. She and her husband, Liat and Aviv, lived on kibbutz near Oz, which is just across the border from the Gaza Strip, maybe a kilometer or so away from the border wall. That kibbutz was very, very heavily hit. There were about 400 residents of the kibbutz. A quarter of them are either dead or missing or taken hostage. It's one of the 3 or 4 places that was most devastated by the Hamas assault. My family has been, of course, totally absorbed in this matter, both my brother and sister and my sister's children and my family that lives in New York, and I also have a cousin who lives in Eugene, Oregon. That's what we talk about. We try to do what we can do. It's pretty clear to those who are living in Israel that the hostages are not a high priority for the Israeli government. In fact, the 20 kibbutzim who came under attack on October 7th, which were devastated by what amounted to a pogrom, none of them, Prime Minister Netanyahu hasn't visited any of them. He hasn't visited with any of the families of the hostages because those kibbutzim, generally speaking, vote for parties of the left in Israel. They don't vote for the parties that comprise the current coalition. So they are political enemies of Prime Minister Netanyahu. And he's abandoned them. And my family and the other families of the hostages, there's quite a high level of unity on this point, are really outraged at the behavior of the Israeli government towards them. And they support a ceasefire to permit the exchange of the hostages, which would also be a very good thing for the Palestinian people, who are being devastated at the rate of 1 child every 10 minutes in the Gaza Strip.
Is your family concerned that the ongoing airstrikes into Gaza could potentially harm the hostages, which your niece is amongst?
We don't think about that. It's just, it's too horrible a thought.
Yes, I understand. Now, going back to you, Nail, can you tell me more about when you had realized that an Israeli airstrike had impacted your family to a point of killing dozens, 39 of them? What was your initial reaction? What emotions were you experiencing?
We Palestinians suffered enough for years and years. For over 75 years we had been suffering from the occupation. Since 1976, or 67 actually, we suffered as a Gazan from the occupation. I personally feel the same feeling when I hear that a human being got killed either in Israel or in Palestine. This shouldn't be happen. I feel so sad that there is a human civilian hostages back there, they had to be immediately released. I had a very disturbed feeling with what's happening in Gaza right now. We're talking about 10,000 people, but I would like to say that we are not numbers. We are a human being. And every 10 minutes, there is a child got killed. This is insane. And this is not a war, this is genocide. This is ethnic cleansing. They are cleaning the whole area from the Arab Palestinian people, and this has to stop. We demanded through media, through actions from the politicians, to put an immediate ceasefire, an immediate humanitarian path. People of Gaza need everything. They need water, they need food, they need medicine. My nephew, when I called him 2 days ago, he told me he has no water to feed or to give to his children. They are boiling the salty water and strain it 2 or 3 times before they give it to their child. There is no food. They stay in a line in the bakeries to get bread, pita bread. This is what the main food or part of the food in the Middle East. They stay there for hours, 3-4 hours, and sometimes they don't get anything. The situation is beyond imagining and beyond my feeling. It's very tough, and it's very harsh, and it's very bad feeling, but an end of it has to be done.
We've heard from Israeli officials that this is not a war against the Palestinian people. This is a war against Hamas. But based off of the amount of civilians killed in Israeli airstrikes, there's a lot of narratives going around saying that it's not about Hamas anymore. How do you feel about that?
So Nael used the word genocide, and a lot of people might think that that's a rhetorical excess. But I've been watching Israeli TV and listening to Israeli radio. And people in command positions, both ministers of the government and military commanders, are using openly genocidal language. We have to flatten the Gaza Strip. One minister in the government suggested dropping a nuclear bomb on the Gaza Strip. Now that hasn't happened, thank God, but when this is the open declared intention of the leaders of the state of Israel, that's one of the definitions of genocide, that you are intending to kill all or a big part of a certain people and make their life impossible. And Nael has described in detail, and we could be even more horrifically detailed if you wanted, how life has been made impossible since October 7th, but the United States agencies declared already before that by 2020, the Gaza Strip would become unlivable. Well, it's already 2023 before October 7th, so conditions were worse than horrible before October 7th for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Now, what do you think about, is this still about Hamas?
I believe it's not about Hamas. When they are warning people to move out of the north part of Gaza to the south part of Gaza, then after that the rocket hit them and killed them. This is a genocide. It's obviously, it's the ethnic cleansing. It is killing people for no reason. So I don't think it is about Hamas. They did not say how many people of Hamas got killed. I did not hear any of that. All we hear is number of people got killed, and that doesn't make me feel sick. Because again, we are not a number, we are a human being. Israel lied and lied until they believe their lie. And they have every politician say Israel has the right to defend itself. is killing more than 10,000 people, is defending itself, is cutting water and food and energy and electricity, is defending itself. This is to create more anger, and this is to create the whole region to be warming up and to be in very hard situation. We're listening to the news from the south part of Lebanon, north part of Israel or Palestinian areas that is getting warm and getting really bad. We hear about rockets from the Iraqi area to the American bases, military bases. The whole situation is getting really big, and I don't think it's against Hamas, it's against the civilians of the people.
If Israel wanted to exact retribution on Hamas for what was a horrific crime that they committed on October 7th by sending special forces to look for and kill or capture Hamas leaders who were responsible, I think the world would say, okay, you suffered a horrific assault on civilians, and you have the right to bring to account the people who are responsible for that. But schools, hospitals, mosques, churches, a convoy of the Red Cross, a third of the buildings of the northern Gaza Strip, by some accounts, have been destroyed. This is gross violation of the principle of distinction and the principle of proportionality, which are supposed to govern what states do when they launch a war.
Now, you had said that, we're talking about over 10,000 people who have died now, and you're saying that, that's a big number, but Palestinians are more than just a number. But it's hard not to recognize that 39 of your family members are a part of that growing number of 10,000. How do you personally move forward knowing that a large majority, if not all of your family in Palestine is gone?
I have to keep going. I have to raise my voice and to say enough is enough. There is no option. I am not going to sit down and grieve and be sad about it. It's very sad. It's very hard. But I feel about the children that every day die. Every 10 minutes a child gets killed. That is not fair. I saw a video with one young little boy in Gaza. They asked him what you would like to be when you grow up. He said, we in Gaza, we don't grow up. We got killed quickly. That is very sad. As a human being, I don't accept that. And this is what we talk about, that a ceasefire has to be in place. Humanitarian issues or path has to be in. Food has to be in. There are 1.3 million in the south part of Gaza. Totally 2.3 million, 1.3 million pushed to the south. And they have nothing to feed their kids. My sister depends on insulin in her life. She is 67 years old, and she's a diabetic. And she has no medicine. Imagine how she will live without them, and for how long she will live.
I think the really remarkable thing about both of your stories is that really you're coming from different perspectives. You had lived in Israel for several years, and your family was impacted by this situation, by your niece being taken hostage, and you coming from a Palestinian perspective as an immigrant yourself or a refugee, your family was killed by the retaliation from Israel on that Hamas attack. But you both, coming from opposite sides, are asking for a ceasefire.
Yes, and it's also very important not to see us as being on opposite sides. We're on the same side. We're on the side of Palestinians and Israelis, and there are such Israelis. I have many friends and colleagues who I even saw last week in Montreal, who believe in equality and dignity and democracy for all. That's a point of view which we don't hear very much about in the United States, because it's a lot easier to say, oh, okay, here are Palestinians and they think this, and here are Israelis and they think that, and now we understand what's going on. But no, it's mistaken, and there's no way out if that's what's going on.
It's not black and white.
The only way out is that we find a way to live together with equal rights for all. So that's the message. That's why Nael and I can sit here together, because we share that belief.
We both share the same values as a human being. As a human, a solution has to be there. Killing people is not a solution. The solution is to have justice and just peace after that. That is what the solution for it. Killing more is not going to get anyone anywhere. Either we, Palestinian, or the Israelis, is not going to get anywhere. So we have a justice for Palestinian rights.
Tell me about the actions you both are taking to ask for a ceasefire. I understand there is some conversations with Oregon lawmakers to hopefully get them to understand your perspectives. What are those efforts looking like?
The first thing that we did together, a group of Portland area Jews and a group of Portland area Palestinians issued a joint statement. And then we held a press conference calling for a ceasefire, for a humanitarian corridor, and for the release of the hostages. Nael spoke, I spoke, Rabbi Benjamin Barnett spoke. He's the rabbi of the synagogue that I belong to. Hala Gores, a well-known lawyer in town, was the moderator, and also Mohammed Osman, is that? Osruf spoke. So that group came together around that statement and the press conference. It's continuing to meet. I didn't meet the last time with them because I was out of town in Montreal. We are planning other public events, both educational events, and also efforts to lobby our lawmakers. The senators and Congress people don't seem very interested in all. We've had several demonstrations. One was at the federal building where Senator Wyden and Congressman Blumenauer have their offices locally. I spoke at that demonstration a few days ago. 60 members of the Portland Jewish community sat in at those offices. There was hardly any media coverage of it. And we are continuing.
Knowing that Oregon lawmakers who are your representatives aren't hearing you the way you would hope, how does that make you feel as an American?
Well, we have the right to say our voice and to say it loud. We are in America, we expressing our right of freedom and free speech. We like Joel mentioned, we had a demonstration and every single senator and House representative. I had personally a meeting with Senator Jeff Merkley, and unfortunately we don't get the response that we like to hear. We get a cut and paste statement that Israel has the right to defend itself, there is no chance for ceasefire now. We have to keep trying. I really appreciate, I thank you for the opportunity that give us a chance to speak to the public and tell them that this is a humanitarian issue. Everybody has to raise their voice. Everybody has to tell their family, their neighbors, their teachers, their school colleagues, their everyone that what's happening in Palestinian area is a genocide, and it is a shame that we don't take an action for a humanitarian path and for a ceasefire.
Joel, Nail, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives with me and sitting down and agreeing to this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.